Are we on the air?
We're airish.
Good.
We're on the net. Does that count?
I think so.
You are coming through very clearly.
As are you. Your video is excellent.
Is it?
Yeah. I can see I can see every knot hair on your head.
Awesome. So what show number is this?
This is 57.
57, like the catch-up.
The lucky number.
My goodness. 57. We have show notes and everything, don't we, somewhere? Oh, here they are.
They're there somewhere.
I got show notes. We got a host topic.
They're out on the internet.
I'm down to one co-host. It's all good. Soon we will have more.
Yeah, we'll take care of that.
Yeah. So, shall we jump in?
I think that we shall.
Let's do it. Okay, here we go. It's Sunday, September 1st, 2013, and welcome to episode 57 of the Retro Computing Roundtable.
Woo!
Woohoo! The RCR is a podcast about retro computing news, nostalgia, and collecting. I'm Carrington, Vanston. I get to sit in the host seat this week, the swivel host seat, and I'm joined, of course, by my personal nemesis, Earl Evans. Hello, Earl. I see you put personal hero in the show notes.
I try and sneak something in, but ain't no getting past you, huh?
Nice try. And I would like to send a shout-out to Cyber Ears, who continues to be our host for the show, and we really do appreciate that. They have hosted us for so many episodes. Yeah, it's crazy, and we have no issues at all, and they're rock solid and just really, really a fantastic host, and we're thrilled to have them on board and continuing to be our host. So you can find out all about them, of course, by heading over to cyberears.com, and we are big, big fans.
Indeed.
So, Earl.
Yes, sir.
I have a topic for you, for us, for you and for me, for the us that is you and me.
It looked like, yeah, I kind of miss that guy that we used to, what was his name again?
Some with a D, I think.
Yeah, Daniel.
It was David Grealish, who unfortunately unfortunately for us, but fortunately for him, turned his efforts to the world of comedy. So we have lost him on a permanent basis. I'm sure he'll be back as an occasional co-host.
Yes.
It's just the two of us, and soon we should be able to announce our mystery third new co-host, which will be quite exciting. But for this episode, it's just a two-hander. The Retro Computing Roundtable is a tiny little booth for two. It's intimate, Earl.
Yes, it is. It's just a tiny little. Hey, stop flirting! I've warned you about that.
Oh.
So yes, indeed, it is just the two of us. And I noticed that your topic is a crotchety one. So
it's crotchety because you and I are old crotchety people, Earl, and I think we should embrace that.
I am finding my inner curmudgeon.
So the topic I want us to discuss this week, the host topic, is going to be entitled "Get Off My Lawn." And the idea is, I'd like to know, Earl, this is something I've got some opinions about, and I'd like to hear your opinions, and then ideally we can get some people writing in, and maybe some of the live listeners to let us know what bit of retro tech, some invention or peripheral or something that bugged you, not just bugs you now, but bugged you at the time. What is the thing or things that you thought everybody else was just plain wrong about it, but it became popular anyway? For me, there's a whole host of these, lots of different bits of technology, but the one that I would focus on first, the one that comes to mind, the thing that I railed against but became popular anyway, no matter what I could do, I couldn't fight it, was the fax. The old facsimile. I did not like faxes from the very beginning. As I put in our show notes here, it was, no, I don't want you to slowly send me a low-resolution, quickly fading, non-editable, blurry copy of an image of a document rather than the actual thing. Because when faxes came around, they were basically just a really terrible scanner connected to a modem. I already had scanners, and I already had much better modems. And the ability to send documents from point to point, it just wasn't pervasive yet, and it bugged me that I felt at the time, if we could just hang on for 6 months or a year, we'll have this nailed down. We don't need faxes. Faxes are a step backwards. We're going to send non-editable documents. But they were easy. It was one of those things where I thought the tech wasn't as good as what already existed, but it was crazy simple. So the people that weren't into computers could just feed a piece of paper, type a telephone number, and press send, and that won out. And it was to my great disappointment. What about you, Earl? What kind of tech bugged you when it came around?
Well, of course, And I don't know if you could count this as tech as a feature or tech as an anti-feature.
Okay.
But I really hate copy protection in any of its forms.
I hear you preach on.
All the way back to the early efforts to do weird things with floppy diskettes so that you couldn't copy them. Exactly. Onto software that required dongles, special devices that you would connect. Like,
the dongles.
Yeah, like CAD software or highly specialized scientific software, high dollar stuff.
Usually the quite expensive stuff. Those are the things that wanted the dongles.
Yes. And then, of course, now we're in the realm of digital rights management solutions, quote unquote, or anti-solutions, I would call them. Defective by design is what the Free Software Foundation calls it, if I recall.
And I agree.
And even into now hardware, such as HDCP, the high-definition copy protection stuff that means that occasionally you'll have something on your high-def connection that won't work because it doesn't support somebody's dream of a world in which all media is controlled by, the MCP.
And I hate that stuff. I recently tried to watch a movie on my computer, and the DCP. I always get the acronym wrong. It glitched out on me, and so it was telling me that on a disk inside my own computer, I wasn't allowed to play it because the built-in monitor, wasn't correctly saying that, yes, I have bought all this stuff that I have bought. So annoying. So absolutely annoying.
Yep, so that's mine. I mean, if I had to then say, okay, technology as a feature, what didn't I like? One thing that really bugged me, honestly, was the monochrome monitor.
Really? Right from the very beginning, back in the old green screens, that kind of thing?
Well, kind of even then, but when the IBM PCs were really getting popular, then we had, of course, tons and tons of them in the aerospace company that I worked at, and there was this perception that a color monitor was just for games. Right. If you wanted to do real business, what you wanted was a monochrome monitor. And if you want a color monitor, what are you, one of these crazy .com guys? Even though, .com was a decade and a half away. But I always hated that perception. I thought there's so much that you can do with color, and obviously that didn't last long. Eventually people thought, wow, color, what a concept. That really is a good idea. We should have computers with color. And
it's a fad.
Yeah. I mean, the PETs that came out, they didn't have color. Of course, the Apple II had color from the beginning. Wozniak's bright idea there that, wow, people might actually like something other than green and black.
Yes, exactly. Or for me, it wasn't monochrome monitors that bugged me. It was the EGA standard. I just, from the beginning, could not take it. Kind
of a tweener standard, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and just hideous also.
The not a good idea, in my opinion, to use the same connector for two different kinds of video standards. Because you're looking at the thing, and you got a DIN 9, or DB9. I mean, you're thinking, what can I plug into this? Is this an EGA? Is this a CGA? I don't know if they would actually electrically damage each other if you plug them in. I don't recall. Maybe somebody on the chat would know. By the way, I can't find us again on YouTube. Can you help me find our link?
Nope. I have no idea where it is. I know we're broadcasting
link,
viewers, so other people have found it.
Hang on. Retro Computing Roundtable Show 57. Let's see if I can find it.
Ideally, you're supposed to just
cannot.
be able to go to youtube.com/RCR podcast. And it used to just appear at the top. Google Hangouts used to just be right there. Now they seem to hide them.
That would be lovely if
That's how it used to be. But yeah, they have, unfortunately, Google keeps messing around with how Hangouts are done and really hides the link. We do have a number of viewers at the moment, so some people have found this. But not you, Earl. You can't be a viewer.
Yeah, I can't look at my own podcast.
Hello, other viewers. But if Earl can't find you, you can't ask questions. So root for Earl, everyone. Root for Earl.
I'll keep trying, but we should go on with the show.
Let's go on with the show. Yeah. So there's a number of bits of this tech that over the years I would have trouble with. Like I had I used to frown a lot about SCSI and the deep magic of trying to get it to work with or without a terminator and just all the weird thing that was going on there. The IBM ThinkPad nipple. Everyone else loved it. I hated that thing from the beginning. The little eraser.
Really?
Everyone liked it.
I
just could not stand that thing. In fact, I didn't like the trackpad when it came out. My earliest laptop computers that I really used quite a bit were the early, not Power Macs, the early MacBooks. What were they called at the time? The MacBooks, the 160, the 145, that kind of stuff. And they had those
PowerBooks.
They had those little ball. PowerBook, that was the word. Those little balls at the bottom. So it was a track ball. And I was already really familiar with using track balls, and I found I could use that with great accuracy. So it had actual clicky buttons or button and an actual trackball, and I could whip around the screen. And then when I got to when they first switched to those frankly terrible trackpads, I thought it was a major step back. I really like the trackpads now, so the technology finally did win me over. But for the longest time, I thought these trackpads are terrible. This is crazy.
The early ones were horrible by comparison. And I don't know if you recall, but Logitech and others made these little clip-on mice for laptops, for the early laptops. And you had a trackpad little clip-on. I think I've still got one in my retro bin. And so you could clip that on, hook it to the serial port, and you could really fly on that sucker.
And there was some terrible tech that I didn't hate. I mean, that I admitted was terrible, like chiclet keyboards. I didn't like them. I never liked them. But sometimes that's just what was available. Like I didn't seem to judge it as much when I had a ZX Spectrum with its terrible little keyboard. And I guess the early PET was like that that I had at school. And it was so exciting at that point just to have a computer. I wasn't as curmudgeonly yet, but like 2 years later, I started railing against technology if I didn't like it. So I hit that curmudgeonly peak, early 80s, and have held on ever since. Never let it go.
Good. Now just stasis from then on, right? Well,
but I'm totally with you on the DRM thing, though. That's the current bit of tech that I rail against the most.
And it's been since the 70s or 80s that they've had that. So
it's gotten worse,
just
though.
in one form or another.
Yeah.
I can say two things about that kind of technology. One,
tell me those two things.
I hate it. And two, it never works. All it does is makes a bad experience for the legitimate owners of the software. But doesn't stop the bad guys at all. They just rip through that like a knife through butter.
But to say it doesn't work, I think you're right that it doesn't work to stop pirates and piracy. But I sometimes question if that's really what it's trying to do. I think there's a lot more money to be made by having the non-technical soccer mums have to keep rebuying Pixar DVDs because you can sell 5 DVDs to them because their kids keep wrecking them, because you can't use DRM to stop me. I can have anything I want, frankly. I pay for it because I choose to. But there is no technology out there that can stop me from having any bit of digital media I want. Suck it, world. I can just choose to take it. I don't. I actually buy lots of stuff on iTunes. If it's convenient and not outrageously expensive, then I will purchase it. But DRM can't thwart me, and it can't thwart my fellow nerds. Like, it's not going to stop us. It can't stop us. The idea of you're going to hand me a box and the key and try to keep me out of the box, well, that's not going to work.
It's just ridiculous. But the thing that bugged me the most about it was, of course, floppy disks were fragile. And so I've got this floppy disk now, and it's got my program on it. It's the only place in the world that I have my program. I legitimately bought my program, but if I happen to sit on my floppy disk or leave it in the sun or for whatever reason, then I'm paying 40, 50 more bucks for another floppy disk. You got to be out of your mind. And
I am out of
also,
my mind.
I'm well, me too, but that's another story. So I got Abbey Road on an LP. I got Abbey Road on a cassette. I got Abbey Road on a CD, and now they want me to buy Abbey Road on 8-track. And now I got to buy Abbey Road on iTunes also. Yeah, it's just anyway. So
you don't have to.
I will.
I don't even mind that kind of thing. I have rebought movies. I think it was 2 nights ago, I bought 4 movies that I already own. I own the DVDs, but I had DVDs, not Blu-rays. It was stuff like, I can't remember what.
If there's an advantage,
I wanted the Hideout one, and I could, I have also rebought the same quality. I bought worse quality stuff because if the movie is going to be $5, frankly, I'm at a point in my life where if that stops me having to go to my closet, find the disc, and rip it and store it, I'll just pay the $5. $5 is a ripping fee. Seems reasonable to me. It wouldn't for a teenager, but now I'm like, please, I do the time evaluation. Go, it's worth $5. Just give me the file. So I'll actually just pay for it. But it bugs me that I then can't necessarily watch that thing where I want. That's what drives me crazy. Like, oh, you can't put it on this media, or you can't play it on that TV. That drives me crazy. So anyway, I thought we'd start with that. A little bit of curmudgeonness to get back into the retro computing feel, because it's been a couple of weeks. So I thought we'd start with a bit of a scowly one.
I think that was a great idea. By the way, can you hear me okay? Because I
can
think
hear you great.
My stupid laptop is overloading here. And
well,
I've got
stutter a little.
That
You're my robo.
I may fall off the grid here if this thing doesn't kick back into gear soon.
I'll miss you. I'll go on without you, but I'll miss you.
Well, that's okay. I'll grab another laptop if that happens. But for the moment, sure. I guess I'm still here. So
absolutely. Just shut down all your background tasks. Focus only on
your
me.
Video has completely frozen on my side. And I don't know what's happening on the YouTube because I just can't find it.
Well,
maybe I should try again here real quick.
We'll assume it's working. What's the worst that can be happening?
Close this.
That made it worse.
Are you still there?
Yes. Oh, I'm giving you a thumbs up, but you can't actually see me.
You have to cut this part out and post.
Sure, no problem. Editing is not a problem.
Stupid laptop.
Well, I am not a big fan of these Hangouts anyway, so maybe this will finally get us off our butt and switch to something more stable. Again,
we may have to find technology, but this laptop, for whatever reason, it's been deciding that anything that takes more processing than booting up just means that I have to run the fan continuously and go into. I wonder if maybe the CPU has come detached from its heatsink or something's happened here.
What's the what operating system are you on?
It's Windows 7. It's Intel Core i5.
I haven't heard anything lately about any changes that have caused that. I know some people on Macs lately with the latest update to Mountain Lion have had their fans kicking out a lot more than usual. But I haven't heard anything about Windows 7 updates, and my Windows 7 laptop is running pretty rock solid. It's not this one, but in general.
I wish I knew whether or not on the YouTube that I was just frozen or if this is working at all. Can somebody email me at earl@retrobits.com, somebody that's watching the video, and maybe send us the link?
Yes, since there are currently 15 viewers. Oh, no, sorry, 16 viewers. Maybe one of them can tell us.
Earl@retrobits.com, if you could please tell us where we are. Curse you, Google!
Well, let me jump in with a little bit of news in the meantime while we wait for that, because there's a short thing I can handle, and we'll see if you get emails. So the Digital Den is hopefully coming soon. It has an Indiegogo campaign, and it's a new nonprofit charitable organization dedicated to the idea of preserving and exhibiting. So it's really a hands-on preservation of vintage computers. You can find out information at digital-den.org. It's not open yet, but will hopefully be coming soon. They're running an Indiegogo campaign to try to raise money for it. Campaign just kicked off, so it hasn't raised much. So I think they're looking for around 25,000, and they have 500 or something like that. But again, the campaign literally just kicked off. It's hosted it's in Cambridge, Cambridge, Mass, not Cambridge, real Cambridge, and it's the idea is to be another museum, but something on the other side of the coast from Silicon Valley, and to preserve vintage computers in general, and vintage computers from the Cambridge area and its use in particular, because there's a history of northeastern people doing things with computers in retro society. Yeah, exactly. And so they
was based in Massachusetts.
Exactly. So they want to do something that is going to preserve that and show that it's not just Silicon Valley. So I really like this idea. So it's digital-den.com, or you can head over to indiegogo.com, and I'll have a link to the Indiegogo fundraising campaign as well. But I'm excited about this. The people behind it all seem to have like a serious retro pedigree, and it's being headed up by a lady who I believe is a professor in Cambridge. So the whole thing just seems quite exciting. So I wish them well, and hopefully that'll be a museum. And I like the idea that they want to do something a little local, like so that it's specifically, hey, this is the world of MIT. We should have that preserved. So it's quite exciting. So digital-den.org.
And as I recall, Lotus Corporation was out of Massachusetts as well,
Was it?
weren't they?
See, that's another one that
think
Lotus
they were.
123. There's a bit of stuff I railed against. I didn't like that either.
Didn't like spreadsheets?
Nope. I was against them all. So everyone seemed to use it, and it was Lotus 123 and Lotus Notes were some of the earliest examples of proprietary file formats that I started butting up against. Early on when I was like, oh, why are you using this, accountant? I can't read your stuff. And it was early on when I still hadn't decided where I was landing on the whole open versus proprietary file formats and software. I was still sort of making up my mind. And so I spent quite a long time railing against 123. I've calmed down about that since.
I have always been just totally on the side of open formats. From the very beginning, I thought that it's ridiculous that you put this in some form that other stuff can't read. You know, I mean, because you had this bunch of disparate programs in the old DOS days, like Lotus 123, either Multimate or WordPerfect or Word or something like that, Harvard Graphics for your business graphics stuff, DBase for your database stuff. None of them could read anything from, and sometimes they could actually import stuff from the other, but then it was a messy import. You weren't 100% guaranteed that it was coming over right. It was version dependent.
It was
oh my
always
gosh,
a sloppy way to go. Yeah.
Bang your head on the brick wall. And if they'd just gone with something open and published, but of course then, you know, when you lose the proprietary, that you allegedly start losing dollars. He says allegedly with huge air quotes hanging in the air.
Exactly, but that's what everyone assumed. All the big companies, Microsoft would say, but if we're the world of Windows and we make all our money from Office, and if we let other people just openly read and write to Office formats, that means there will be choice, and someone can pick a word processor that's not ours. They lose their lock-in, and if you come from a mentality that thinks our software is not good enough to survive if we don't lock people in, then you're going to want to build fences.
Yes, but if you love your customers, set them free.
I'm with you again. Preach on, Earl. 100%. Yeah.
This is what I say.
Crazy.
So, but yeah, Massachusetts Digital Den. That sounds like a great thing, and also that will mean that we'll have a couple of great places over there in the eastern part, your part of the world.
My part of the world.
A couple places over here in the west part of the world with Seattle and the Living Computer Museum, and of course the Bay Area's Computer History Museum.
Right.
So we just got to get some stuff in the middle.
Yes, exactly, on the flyover states. There needs to be a flyover museum of technology.
Yeah, somebody get on that.
Yeah.
Huh?
Get on now. So did you get email, Earl?
No email yet, so I still don't know where we are. Please, if you're watching this live, earl@retrobits.com. It's an easy email address. Operators are standing by.
Just to let Earl know if he can be seen. So what's up next, Earl? What have you got? I think you want to say something about Kansas Fest, which I went to. It was awesome.
And in fact, you're on video, and that's what I want to talk about, is that, here we go. Thank you, Michael. What a guy.
What a guy.
All right. Switching over to it. Hello. Oh, it just brought me back here. There we go. I see it.
I really don't like the new Hangout system with YouTube at all.
Yes, now I can see comments. So, and they mentioned that Boston did have a computer museum before. In fact, wasn't it?
I did not know that.
Wasn't it the computer museum that moved to the Bay Area? I thought that the Computer History Museum somehow had its origins in Boston and then eventually got moved to the San Francisco Bay Area. But
I did not know that at all.
I could be mistaken on that. Also, somebody here talking about Lincoln Laboratory in Lexington, Massachusetts. I think that's where they made the link, which didn't that eventually morph into the PDP-8?
Exactly.
My brain's all stirred up today. Oh, yes, Michael, I completely agree. 16:9 computer monitors. Come on, guys. Why did monitors have to suddenly stretch? The old square monitors were great. Now,
and to me, they didn't stretch. For me, from the whole time, as soon as I saw 16:9 monitors, all I thought was, you're shrinking them. And yes, it means if I watch a 16:9 movie on a big square 4:3 monitor, I'll have black bars. But if you make a big 16:9 monitor, all you're doing is really shrinking what I can see top, up, and down. And everything I do, other than watching movies, I want more height.
Yes.
All word processing, scrolling, and working the net, like everything. And even if I'm editing videos, I want more height because I can't just see the video. I need to see timeline and all these other things. There's a single task that 16 by 9 is supposedly better for, but it's not even actually better because all it means is I just seeing, I see space above my monitor instead of a black bar. How is that actually better?
I don't think it is. Do you remember the radius pivot?
I do remember the pivot. In fact, I have frequently I still pivot actual monitors because both Mac and OS, Mac and Windows for a long time have let you pick a monitor and just say, I want to view that rotated. I frequently do rotate monitors.
And my Dell 2412 does that as well. You can physically rotate it, and then you can pick the rotation, and that's kind of nice.
I can physically rotate any monitor. I just, put it on its side.
Here you go. It's rotated.
And the choice of Visa mounts and stuff like that, which I'm not using today, which is why every time I touch my table, the background is wiggling.
I've got that.
I'm a big wiggly monitor today, so I'm trying to keep my hands off.
Yeah, I'm a 7.3 myself here.
Right.
Also, Grumpier Than Thou points out it wasn't just CGA and EGA that had that DB9 connector. It was also the monochrome. You remember that?
Of course,
the original PC monochrome. So you could so easily plug the wrong thing into the wrong thing.
And is it working? Is it not working? I can't tell. Well, the plug worked.
And he says if you plug a 5151, the monochrome monitor, into a CGA card, you'll fry it. He says, haven't tried it, but...
Oh, because something's carrying power that was supposed to carry data, that sort of thing? I could see that. If it's the pin out is like, hey, I wasn't expecting pin 3 to have 5 volts on it.
So, yay, Michael, you helped us out. I'm actually on the comments now.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And also, it's nice to see people's comments.
And Grumpier Than Thou says he thinks that's right about the moving of the Computer History Museum. Yeah, I think it started in Boston. In fact, I think you can get on YouTube and see some videos of it when it was hosted there.
Well, then I'm glad they're getting one back because it is a computing important part of the world, and so it deserves its own, Massachusetts-centered museum. So I'm really happy about this project, and it looks really cool. And they've got a lot of tech already, and there's a big retro computing collection with a few hundred computers near that is pledged to give them all of their duplicates and to lend anything that they don't have duplicates of, but to put on show for a while. So it could come together to be a pretty cool thing, and it would be within driving distance of me. And so personally, I'm excited about it.
Yes.
So let's go back to Kansas Fest. You were just
let's talk about Kansas Fest and videos. So if you couldn't go to Kansas Fest, one of the next best thing is to see the people who went to Kansas Fest. So on Computer World, there was, by the intrepid Mr. Ken Gagney, a set of video profiles of Kansas Fest attendees, I think with the question posed, who in 2013 would attend an Apple II convention?
With the implied why.
Yes, but it turns out some very, very disparate and interesting personalities would attend such a convention, including ours truly, Carrington Vanston.
Me truly.
Who, as in rare form, took the opportunity to make a massive dig at Commodore, which will result in the most incredible 8-bit smackdown in history. Something that maybe we'll talk about toward the end of the show.
Yes, we will. Earl and I will be doing virtual battle. I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be so much fun. No matter how it turns out, this is going to be hilarious.
Well, I'll tell you how it's going to turn out. Apple's going to win.
You think so, huh?
Yep, you heard it here first.
Your puny little 6502 is going to beat my 6510.
Yep,
you think
totally.
So? 100%. I got 8 more.
Oh no, that's right. You got more. You got 8 more than me.
Anyway, so
the videos are really good. I watched a bunch of them as well. In fact, I still haven't bookmarked because I don't know why I haven't made my way through all of them. I don't think I've seen them all.
And I think that there was Ken published on one of the mailing lists some of the ones that didn't even make the cut, and those were good too. So I think we should try and get those links 100%. On our show notes.
Yes, I will make sure we link to the one shown in Computer World and find a link to the ones that weren't on Computer World and try to get the complete set linked. And you'll be able to find that in the show notes for this, which is episode 57, over at rcrpodcast.com.
Mm-hmm.
They were shot really well. He's got a good camera.
Yes. Yes, the quality was very good.
Yeah, it was remarkable. I was like, oh my goodness, look at that. So.
Oh, and Rob was asking if I got his email. He said he emailed me like 5 minutes ago. I never got it. Maybe you're in my spam filter, Rob.
That'd show him.
That would be awful. I I do not need the Commodore in my spam filter. Oh, all of a sudden now a bunch have appeared. I've got links from like 5 different people.
Spam. There's another bit of technology that bugged me from the beginning.
Oh my gosh, the spammers. We don't even want to go into that.
Spammers.
I'll be talking, spammers and fishers and spear fishers and virus writers and all those people who, we should bury out in Alamogordo along with all those Atari cartridges.
Oh, and speaking of Rob O'Hara, if he is watching, give a shout out to him and his podcast.
You don't know Flack.
So good. Rob, Your podcast is so good. You must do more episodes like daily. I love his podcast so much.
We are fanboys if you don't know Flack.
My God, I love that show so much. It's personal. It's got such a great, unique voice in podcasting. I just love it. I am an unabashed fan of that show. Yeah. So next bit, I want to talk to you about GOG. Not God.
Good old games.
GOG. Good old games.
GOG.
I am a big fan as well. One of the few places on the net that I frequent to purchase things that I don't use. That and Steam get a lot of money from me with the idea that I'll think in my head, yeah, I want that. I'll play that someday. I don't know. I have probably actually downloaded and played 1 out of 25 games that I've purchased on Good Old Games. So for the most part, it's just something that reminds me of games I used to like, and I give them money for reminding me. But then I can, download them and play them should I ever somehow get time. So big fan of Good Old Games, GOG.com, and if you're ever looking for just retro games, like that's the place to go to very, very cheaply, especially because they have great sales and they'll do great bundles to buy old games to run on new operating systems.
Aren't they DRM free also?
Yes, they just everyone that I've downloaded I probably downloaded 5, but I bought so many, it's crazy. And for the most part, it seems that they're bundling it in DOSBox and saying, here's a bundled version of the game.
But they do tweak it so that you can run it. I mean, you can get it on your modern operating system, and the sucker actually runs.
Yeah, it's great. Great. I absolutely adore Good Old Games. So they, this was actually something came in a while ago, and it was in our show notes, but then I missed the show, and we missed last week, and I still want to bring it up because I really liked it. They had an article at the Good Gear Guide, so goodgearguide.com.au, over in Australia. And it's GOG.com and the challenges of retro PC gaming. And it's a really interesting article talking about this whole idea and what's involved in getting the rights and getting the actual technical bundles together to be able to resell these old games when you want to go back and find another world. What's involved in obtaining the rights, what's involved, like what are the hurdles involved in doing that? And I found it a really interesting glimpse behind the scenes. And they also talk about what would be your dream games to bring on GoodOldGames.com and what would you like? And it was a nice little insight into what's going behind the scenes at GOG.com. And I'm such a big fan of the site. I thought it was a chance to both give them a shout out and say it's my favorite place to purchase retro computing games. And it's also interesting what they go through to try to make those things available. So we'll have a link in the show notes to the article, but it's over at goodgearguide.com.au.
I have not read that article, and I can tell you that right after this show, I'm going to go over and read that.
Yeah, and it's not super long, but it's really interesting.
Now, they already have my dream games, so I don't know what to suggest to them.
What are your dream games?
My retro games that I loved were the Descent series. Descent 1,
I was just talking about those with somebody else who was saying how a game, I think it was Mike McGinnis on the latest, probably not yet broadcast version of No Quarter. We were talking about some other game that reminded him of Descent 3, and then we got onto a tangent discussing the Descent games.
My son, in his younger years, we set up a couple computers with Descent 3. We got a CD box set over at Fry's for $5 or something like that, and set it up head-to-head. We played so much Descent 3, I just can't even tell you how many hours we spent.
Super fun land game. Yeah.
Yeah, and so many people, I mean, even today, are making new maps and new challenges and that kind of thing for Descent 3. One problem, it crashes from time to time, and that's just a thing of video drivers and that, because it's a really old game.
Were you into the LAN gaming scene at all? Did you do get-togethers and LAN games?
Didn't do LAN parties, that kind of thing. Maybe did I would say the IT equivalent of it, because we would, back in the Descent days, we would put Descent on the various computers at work and get on the LAN with each other and start playing the head-to-head and co-op. And then later, as technology moved forward, we would do the same thing with Half-Life Counter-Strike. Played a lot of Counter-Strike at work after hours. We'd get on our big monitors, our .com monitors, and start going to town. Yeah. Didn't do a LAN party, though. I have a computer case called the Antec LAN Boy that comes with a carrying strap, so you can take this desktop, the full thing, and just cart it off to a LAN party if you want. That's what it was made for. Yeah, very, very nice. Didn't do that, though, unfortunately.
I didn't do too much of it. I wasn't huge into the system, but I had a good friend of mine who I haven't actually seen in years, so we'll say former friend. Screw you, Michael. No, I'm kidding. Michael Hainsworth, who's fairly famous now as both a radio and a TV personality in doing news. And he has a podcast of his own, actually, called Geeks and Beats that he does with, it's Michael Hainsworth and Alan... Sorry, Alan, I forgot your name. How embarrassing, but I can't remember. I don't know him personally.
You remember? It's Alan.
It's Alan. It's Alan. It's
just Alan, man. Come on.
It is a really good audio podcast and crazy depth of knowledge when it comes to audio history and rock and roll history but anyway, Michael Hainsworth, back before he was Mr. Famous Media Guy, he used to host LAN parties at his house, and so a number of us, usually it would be a group of anywhere from 4 to 7 or 8, I think, at most, would get together and we would play. And one of the games we primarily played was Marathon, because we were all Mac guys. And so it was back in the early days of Mac LAN gaming, in the pre-Halo days, basically, because it's Marathon that essentially became Halo. And so we played a lot of Marathon, and it remains to this day one of my all-time favorite games and gaming experiences, and one of my all-time favorite LAN and multiplayer experiences. Just loved playing Marathon. So we would lug our big, heavy boxes, this is the PowerMac 7600 days. So you got big monitors, big, heavy computers. We'd lug them all to Michael's house on a few tables and wire them all up together. It's pre-wireless days. Everything's got to plug in. All the kind of stuff that you would just hop on the net. There'd be no reason to be in the same house. So it's a different sort of experience that when you're all gathered together, you're all you're talking over each other's monitors, trash talk, and you're eating chips and
I don't know.
having a party.
I think it's still kind of fun. I mean, my son games with some of his friends online, but it's his birthday today, and he last night had a friend of his over, one of the friends that he commonly games with online, but he actually came over. We set up the big table outstairs, out in the living room, and we set up the desktop computer out there. They had the dual monitors going and everything like that. It's kind of like going to the theater versus watching a movie in your home theater.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's that communal kind of experience. So I think it's still fun.
Alan Cross just hit me. Alan Cross is the other fellow in the podcast.
Nice.
One of those things where it's like bugging me. Yes, Michael Hainsworth and Alan Cross. Alan Cross, of course, being probably one of the most famous radio personalities ever, and he's probably also most famous for doing the history of rock and roll, syndicated through seemed like 1 billion different stations. So he's the kind of guy who has met and interviewed and knows everything about every band ever. So they make a really interesting podcast, the pair of them. It's really, really, really good. So Michael and Alan. And anyway, Michael, I appreciate all the many years of hosting me and buying all the potato chips when we played Marathon. So
fun.
So, yeah. So what is next? Who's next up with news? Is it me?
Am I next with the little
You're
Mac?
Next with a little itty-bitty Mac.
So one of the things that fascinates me most about the maker culture is the fact that there are people out there who are so talented and creative. They are like the MacGyvers of the maker culture.
Crazy,
they could take stuff and just carve it up and dice it and slice it, and then the next thing you know, you've got a little miniature work of art. So this fella, and we'll have a link in the show notes, of course, made a 1/3 scale classic Macintosh. I believe it was a Raspberry Pi that is the brains of it, and
Makes sense.
a little itty-bitty monitor and running an emulation. So it's not a real Mac on the inside, but you couldn't fit the circuit board of a real Mac into this itty-bitty Mac. But it's so cute. And then he brings up the emulator, runs the classic Macintosh operating system, and so you've got this tiny little Mac that's running things like Mac Draw.
I'm looking at the picture, and it's a little tiny thing he's holding in his two hands. Like it is. It's a little tiny classic toaster Mac, but a little tiny one.
I think things like this should get attention because I so admire people who can build this kind of stuff, that they've got not only the aesthetic, but they've got the manual dexterity, the talent to carve and put things like this together. So I don't. When I try and build stuff, it just winds up looking horrible. So I do it anyway.
This is a cool project. This really came together. We will definitely have it. So there's an article about it over at TheVerge.com, and I'll make sure we definitely have a link to it because, yeah, it looks fantastic.
You've seen some of the stuff from Ben Heck, right?
I have, of course.
And that guy just, he's like the Ginsu knife of the build it yourself. Just throw the stuff up in the air.
And just it comes down as something cool. Yes.
And it comes down. Yeah, this nicely built project that looks gorgeous, like you just bought it at the store. So yeah, check out this little mini Mac. It's a beautiful thing.
That is totally sweet. Nice.
And a cool YouTube video on it where you actually get to see it in action.
Fantastic. It reminds me of at Kansas Fest this year, and as an aside, let me just say Kansas Fest this year was crazy good. Have we actually had a show since Kansas Fest? Maybe. I don't know if I've been on one. Anyway, it was amazing. It was amazing.
I thought we did, but maybe you weren't there.
Because I met Steve Wozniak.
Yes, you did.
Oh, I'm off camera here. Early show and tell. Steve Wozniak's metal business card.
My goodness.
Isn't that cool? And he's got his phone number punched out here in the form of a punch card. So you have to read it as a punch card. It gives you his phone number.
Nice.
Super cool.
So you got to dig out your Hollow Earth codes.
I know. Yes, exactly. So at Kansas Fest, there was a connector that connects. You can use the keyboard in an old Apple II to connect and work as a USB keyboard on a modern computer. Like most people want to go the other way. Right. You have a connector that lets you use a modern keyboard with an old computer. This is something that does the opposite. And it's perfect if you want to build, like, say, a portable modern PC in an old abandoned Apple IIc case, because now you're using that keyboard, or make an Apple IIe that has a full modern Mac inside it or something. So I'm really, really keen on picking up a few of those and seeing what I can do with it. So speaking of things you can build,
I think that the winning entry for the Retro Challenge this year was Seth's circuit that he made to connect a DEC VT100 keyboard to a modern PC.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. And the VT100 keyboard has a very nice feel to it. So
yeah, totally.
That's another one of those cases of going from a retro keyboard to a modern computer rather than the other way around.
Yeah, it's pretty rare that you get the other way around. So I thought that was interesting. Anyway, Kansas Fest this year was mind-blowingly awesome. So I'll sum it up as that. Oh, can't wait till next year. So one last piece of news. Somebody's passed away, and it's not that he's famous, but I thought he got an article in the Washington Post, and it's a fellow. This is a great name, Manson H. Whitlock. Awesome name.
That is.
So, Manson Whitlock.
That's a fiction novel name.
Totally. Manson H. Whitlock has passed away at the age of 96. And we frequently talked on the show in the 56 episodes that came before this one about people in the retro compute, like sort of the pioneers of retro computing, and pioneers of computing rather, when they have passed. And increasingly that's just going to be something that happens because, alas, everybody but me is mortal. I will miss you all eventually. So Manson Whitlock is probably not somebody that you would have heard of if you weren't in and around the Cambridge MIT area. He's a typewriter repairman, and he was a typewriter repairman from, I believe, 1930 straight through until this previous June, when he closed up his shop because he was having some health problems, and he's now passed away. So for crazy numbers of years, through all of these decades, he's been a fellow who has repaired typewriters. And typewriters, of course, aren't really our computers are not what we talk about, but they're the forebearers of a lot of computing. And he's somebody who just stuck with that. And what I liked about this, and the article was really touching, and just it's funny how these are the kind of things that are passing along with these people who pass away. That kind of craftsmanship Because he talks about how with a typewriter, with a manual typewriter, and the expense of them, it's a completely different mentality than we have now. Increasingly, the computers we have, our creation devices, are made in a way that they are not repairable. Like even the latest MacBook Pros, they're so integrated that if things go wrong, you basically chuck it and get a new one. Or they repair it because... Yeah, totally. Whereas typewriters, especially manual typewriters, are from an era where when things go wrong, you brought them to somebody and you had them fixed. And the idea would be that you'd have something and you would stick with it. And of course, I want a new computer every 6 months. I don't want to necessarily stick with things, but I still lament the loss of the craftsmanship behind the kind of tools that we would use every day. And so this is a fellow who from 1930 until 2013, so it's a massive run just outside of the university. He said he couldn't go to that university, so he had that university come to him. And for all these years, he has repaired typewriters. And at one point, it was a massive shop, and he had a whole bunch of people working there, and he sold typewriter ribbons by the thousands. But then eventually, of course, it's just him, and it's just him upstairs, and it was just him repairing typewriters as the need came up. And I think his is a skill that is going to be lost. There'll be a point where nobody really knows how to fix these things anymore, and maybe nobody will want them fixed. But so yeah, he got a whole big article in WashingtonPost.com. So I will send a link to it because quite a touching story and quite an interesting thing, I think, to think of all the craftsmen that used to repair the stuff we have now replaced with these new things, like the stuff that got washed away by technology, which is itself now getting washed away by newer technology. So before we move on to... Yeah, totally lost art. So I've got a bunch of upcoming events. I thought we'd start adding in a section on upcoming events to tell people ahead of time.
That is a great idea.
I thought so. That's why I just did it and didn't even tell you about it. Just upcoming events. Here you go. But before that, do we have any comments we should address on YouTube?
One moment, please.
Your video is important to us.
Yes, please stay on the line. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Thanks, Grumpier Than Now. The Mini Mac was made by John of the Retro Maccast.
Really?
I should have known that looking at the picture. What is the matter with me?
I should have known that now that I'm re-looking at the picture. Yes.
And Rob points out that the best Mac LAN game was Spectre VR.
That was a very good, but not best. Rob doesn't understand the joys of the Macintosh as deeply as I do, being tainted by Commodore, as he is.
He also points out that everything he knows about IPX ODI drivers and the old 3C509 was due to networking machines to play Doom 2. I would say that I learned a lot about the IPX stack also for doing Descent, for the peer-to-peer stuff.
IPX, I only know about IPX because of trying to troubleshoot LAN games.
Mm-hmm. Well, we used it at work, so actually I kind of lived and breathed.
Did you play a lot of LAN games at work? Is that why you all wanted color monitors?
Yes, because it's only for gaming, you realize.
Of course, it still is.
Yeah, I mean, what do you need anything besides black and white for? Black and white will show you letters. That's
exactly.
Young whippersnippers. So those are the recent comments.
Cool. So we've got a few upcoming events that I thought I would point out to people in alphabetical order. No, in the order of the calendar. Calendrical order. They are. VCF Midwest 8.0 is coming up at the end of September. So big heads up that. Lots of time in advance.
Is that not combined with the ECCC?
I don't think it is. Is it?
I thought it was.
Okay, then I'm going to say that it is. It is combined with the Emergency Chicagoland, whatever that is. Sure. I only know it as VCF Midwest 8. So September 28th and 29th. So
let me see if I'm hallucinating.
You probably are, but that is a totally separate issue.
Happens.
Website doesn't seem to mention anybody else. Oh, look, yes it is. In conjunction with the Fall Commodore Expo ECCC.
Yep.
Which sounds suspiciously like a Congress thing.
Don't forget the Commodore stuff, Mr. Apple guy.
Whatever. And if you can't make it to Lombard, Illinois, if that is too far north for you, maybe you want to hang out in Arlington, Texas instead. Retropalooza will be taking place on September 28th. They don't seem to have a website. It's just a Facebook page, but if you Google Retropalooza, you can find the Facebook page and a bunch of videos announcing it. In a previous episode of this show, we talked about some YouTube shows that I quite like, and there's one called the, I know them as 8-Bit Oh, Game Chasers. That's what it is. Game Chasers. Really, really fun thing about a couple of guys from Texas who go game chasing. They go hunting old Nintendo games and trying to get them cheap and that kind of stuff. And really personable fellows. So they seem to be a couple of the forces behind this. And it's going to be mostly a swap meet. So, and again, mostly geared towards games, but there'll be a lot of retro tech there. So if you're going to be in Arlington, Texas, or near that, it might be a fun event to check out. So that's on September 28th. VCFE, E for Europe. So the VCFE 14.0 will be taking place on October 5th and 6th in Switzerland. So I'm going to say this city would be pronounced Winterthur.
This is their 14th?
Yeah.
VCFE? Wow!
Yes, I know. I didn't know there were that many
Congratulations.
VCFEs. Like, really
That is
surprising.
awesome.
So yeah, so you can find that over at vcfe.org. So they're up to number 14. It'll be taking place in Switzerland, October 5th and 6th. And finally, I figured we'd take this to the end of next month. DEC, the DEC Legacy 2013 conference. So it's going to be a whole conference just about DEC, taking place on October 19th and 20th in Windermere, United Kingdom. So it's going to be off the UK, and you can find it at declegacy.org.uk. What, is it a Commodore thing?
No.
Okay, then I'll add it. What is it?
Can you see that? Retro Gaming Expo.
Oh, cool. And where is that taking
Portland.
place? Portland. Never heard of it.
October 5th and 6th.
Very cool. Okay, we have to make sure we add that. Oh, retro gaming, how I do enjoy it.
No kidding, huh?
So lots of good stuff coming up the next... all that seemed to take place from end of September to end of October. So I think there's at least one big event, though, earlier in September, but I couldn't remember what it was. Maybe somebody could write and remind me.
And if you're going to get out to one of these things, or if you're thinking about it, get out to them, because really it's the summer to mid-fall where you really find the retro computing festival season. And after that, it kind of dries up until the next April, May
It's too cold.
sort of thing. Yeah, it's too cold.
And it's super fun. Super fun to get together
ready.
with people and just hang out. Like I don't know if it was last weekend or the weekend before, but recently was Fan Expo here in Canada. In Toronto. It has nothing really to do with retro tech. It's more about science fiction and horror and comics and all that kind of stuff. But I went to that, and everyone's in costume, and it's super awesome. It is just a fun thing to go to any sort of event where the gathering is nerds like you. So that's the best reason to go to a vintage computer gathering of any sort. If you have never done it, like, because sometimes us computer nerds can be not the most outgoing people, and but honestly, just suck it up and go. You will have such a good time when you are surrounded by people who share your particular nerdy type passion. There's nothing like that. It is just such a thrill. Love it.
I'm telling you, you start chatting at 9600 baud.
You
Seriously.
do indeed. So let's jump into things that we can purchase for me. So here's an
I
idea.
like the one that you picked. I just don't have that kind of coin.
I know. So my host gift idea, which is for me a gift that you could buy me as your host, is the Chronos Clock. Chronos is spelled with an X in this case. So it's Xronos, the Chronos Clock. It's over on Etsy, so we'll have a link to Etsy.com for that. Chronos Clock version 2.1. It is an Arduino-based clock, and so it's not really retro computing, although it has a retro look to it because it has this big, bright LED and very programmable LCD little display. 3 big buttons on top that are arcade style buttons, so it's really fun. But what I like about it, it is super programmable, and it speaks. So it can do everything that you'd want an alarm clock to do, and in that it can set alarms and tells you the temperature and all that kind of stuff. And you can change the sounds because all of the voices and all the sounds it uses are just on an internal little memory card. So you can just swap in different sound files and you can completely customize it. You can also change the colors and change the display and all that sort of stuff. But what I like about it most of all, and why it links in, I think, as a retro computing gift, is it can have the quick display LED scrolling words on the bottom, totally programmable. So it looks just like Colossus from the Colossus movie. And I'm thinking if you could put your own sounds in too, I mean, that's fantastic. It's not just a wake-up call, it's a wake-up call from the voice of world control.
That's right. So, I am the voice of world control.
Totally. So for me, this is the Colossus clock, because that's what I would be using it for, and it just thrills me. It is on the expensive side. $265.04 Canadian. I don't really know what that is in American, but that's what it's translated to, so probably $250 American. So it's an expensive... 4 cents? I don't know. That's just what, for me, I can purchase this for $265.04.
What if you left off the 04? Would he not
They wouldn't send it to me. They'd say, no way. It comes out of New York, so it's out of the States. And you can get it with an RFM transceiver and stuff. It has lots of different options, but it's a cool-looking, big, very programmable block. So if the kind of person who's really picky about his alarm clock, it'd be a fun gift for them. But if you're the kind of person who wants to be woken up by Colossus, the voice of world control, this is the way to do it. So that made me very excited.
I don't know. That might creep me out a little bit.
Creeps you out? Get you out of bed.
I love that movie, but yes. I do find it a little creepy.
Yes. And what about, let's turn to eBay stuff.
So one thing I want to talk about, I keep going on these eBay rants, and I promise myself every time I won't do it again.
No, we're back on curmudgeonly.
I was through 50 pages of eBay listings before I finally just gave up and went to searches to find something. I tell you, the place is just littered up like crazy. I don't know if other people are having this experience, but I was just going through there going, man, it is a wasteland. I'm not finding anything that is worth talking about. And when I do occasionally find those little nuggets that are worth talking about, then they're selling for stupid money. Not just too expensive money.
Not just regular money, but stupid
money. Yes. So I was looking at that and going, wow. So I finally just searched up something, and that's how I got
And what did you
something.
find?
What I found was a PET 8032, and actually in really nice condition.
That's cool.
Yeah, love these. Now, the price I thought was just barely reasonable, $300. So that's not too much. But that's definitely not too little. If you wanted, and also some of the keys are not in perfect condition, so I was thinking, well, okay, you probably would pay about that, but it wasn't stupid money. It's something that I found was actually reasonable money if you want something like this, and I really like the condition that it's in. It's amazing how many of the pets that you find that are not all dinged and scratched up, and not sure exactly why that is. I'm looking over at mine on the metal shelving over there, barely a scratch on it. And then occasionally you'll find the ones that look like somebody just took a jackhammer to it.
Right, yeah.
So that's my pick.
Very cool. And where is it shipping out of?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere.
What is shipping?
You have it brought up?
Well, no, it's more that let me bring it up because I'm worried. That's the kind of thing I worry about the cost of shipping. Let me look.
I'm scared to do it. Well, they're heavy. It's true. The stinking pets are heavy. I'm scared to bring up anything else on my computer right now because it's...
It's located in Hutto, Texas. I do not know Hutto, Texas. And here's the downside. Free local pickup, but local pickup only. Not offering any shipping. So if you're in and around Texas, though, the nice thing is, yeah, you can swing by and pick it up. Because sometimes with something like this, you do want to pick it up. You don't want it shipped because it's going to get destroyed. Like, these are big, heavy items, and it's hard to pack them so that they survive.
So you probably know about this because you're a shipping guy.
Although, yes, we have sold a shipping company, but yes, I have a good background in shipping. I have successfully shipped many a thing.
Lots of background in this, yes, I knew that. And a friend of mine researched, because he was moving from Portland to California, to Southern California, and researched the best way to ship these guys, and it was with that super foam. That stuff that you just spray in, and
the best
then
way to pack it. But don't use the spray and stuff. I mean, if you're going to pack it yourself, you don't want to use the spray and stuff. That's something called foam in place. Sealed Air is one of the big brands of that. So basically, it's an A and B chemical. When they touch, they expand and they become an open cell foam. So they don't become styrofoam, which you don't want to use because that's a closed cell. So when you press it with your thumb, it's basically popping the bubbles. That's why styrofoam leaves dents. That means as it shakes around, it gets looser and looser and looser. So you don't want to use styrofoam in shipping. You want to use something closed cell, so it's spongy and keeps coming back. So the nice thing about a sealed air system of some sort, the spray foam, is it'll mold right around the system, but then it's still open cell. You can buy those in bags though, so it's a little more expensive, but it's no chance it's going to. When you're using the spray stuff, you got to make sure you really coat it with the protective paper, because you want that stuff to touch your document. And at home, you're not going to be able to use the spray stuff. But you can buy them in pre-made bags, and you basically, it has the A and B chemical loose inside, and so you press it, and it pops the one gel cap, and then you squish them back and forth 10 times, and then it just expands in the bag. But then there's no chance of anything getting anywhere where you don't want it to get. So two of those will pack a computer perfectly, one on the bottom, one on the top, big sturdy box, and you're gold. I prefer to double pack it.
What about the expense of those things?
Those things are pretty cheap. If you're going to do a lot of shipping, you generally buy them in a pack. Like they'll come as a pack, it'll be 24, and then I think you're spending like $5 a piece or something like that. So it adds up. But $10 of packing material can then make your computer. You can throw it off your balcony and it'll be fine. So it's a good way to pack.
Right.
That
and
in a
I
strong
think
box.
that is actually what a lot of these shipping companies do, is that they throw them off balconies. Some of the ones that I got, look like they've been, thrown out of an airplane. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
But that's my eBay pick, and yes, they are expensive and troublesome to ship. But
I like your eBay pick, and I just realized I hadn't pasted mine in, so I've just pasted it in so that you can see it. And I have selected an Apple II game. It's actually specifically for the Apple II GS. It's something that has come up on eBay a bunch of times. This particular box, because I recognize it, because I had considered purchasing it myself a few times, and I see that it's back. I'm a big fan of still shrink-wrapped original software, and it's often hard to tell from an auction listing if something is a reshrink, because it's very easy to get a box and reshrink wrap something. But you get to know the various manufacturers. Once you handle enough of the software, you start to know, well, how during a certain period did Infocom wrap their games. You start to know where the seal should be. Nintendo people are the same way. You could tell an original Nintendo shrink from a reshrink just because of where the seam would be and that sort of stuff, and the type of material. So this is Deja Vu 2, which I prefer a lot over the original Deja Vu, Lost in Las Vegas for the Apple II. And what I like, or the Apple II GS, so it's a point-and-click adventure game. But what I like about this particular packaging is they were really taking a page out of the Infocom playbook, in that the box itself has a molded face on it, sort of like the mask box early Infocom. So it's got that 3D mask face, but of course it's a guy who's like a hard-boiled detective fellow. It's not nearly as nice of a package as the early Infocom stuff, but still I see this as one of the better-looking, cooler early Apple II packages, and it's still in shrink wrap. It's $60 plus $10 shipping to bring it up to Canada. I don't know what it would be elsewhere. The shrink's starting to peel away, but it is still a brand new game, and I love a shrink wrap game because I love to open a shrink wrap game. There's nothing more thrilling than
to file them.
Totally, I love to rip them open. You just don't get that experience as much anymore. So I'm all for somebody buying this and tearing that sucker open and playing with it. So Deja Vu 2, Lost in Las Vegas for the Apple II GS. The fancy box with the molded face is currently on eBay. It's come up a bunch of times though, so for the same price, he just hasn't had a taker yet. So, but I think it's eventually going to sell. Maybe we can find a buyer for it now.
Cool.
So that is my pick of the day. So that brings us to the end of our fixed discussions with one more outstanding item, I think, which is you and I, Earl, doing mighty battle in the form of chess. As Earl was saying earlier, in the video taken of me at Kansas Fest, I did say quite reasonably that Commodores were, for the most part, assembled by prison labor. I think is how I put it, something like that. So
I think that the follow-on quote when I called you out on this was Commodore users should be, quote, ashamed of themselves.
So that sort of talk, for
yes,
some
that
reason,
trash
Earl
talk
thought needed a response.
Indeed, it did.
So Earl. Also, in our last show, I think it was the last show, it was something recently, we were talking about the Computer Chess movie, which is a super fun movie, super nerdy. And so Computer Chess was on our mind. Me calling out the Commodore people was on Earl's mind, and Earl has challenged me to a chess game, but not me personally. It will be an Apple II computer against a Commodore 64 computer. We both get our choice of vintage computer software. We've yet to sort of set the rules, but we're going to do it. Ideally do it live so people can watch it somehow as we're doing with this video. So it'll be a live head-to-head match to finally determine which is the better computer for computer chess. Just for that one small thing. Earl, I believe you have selected your item, right? You've selected your software?
I'm going to play with Cyrus 2.
Now, I'm concerned about that choice because I was unfamiliar with it, so I looked it up. And I guess there was quite a big retro computing match back in the day amongst Commodore 64s to determine what is the best Commodore 64 software for chess. Have you seen the results of that one?
I have indeed.
Well, Cyrus 2 trounced everybody, including all of the versions of the software that are currently available for the Apple II. So
I did my research on this, Mr. C.
Well played, Mr. Evans. So it's like, oh, darn. Now, I have 2 pieces of vintage Apple II software, the chess software, still in the shrink wrap.
Ooh.
So
that's got to get you some points.
I think so.
Right,
well, it has because you've said I can have first move, so that seems fair.
Yes.
So I have, and I'm trying to decide between the 2 of them. So I've got Sargon 3, the ultimate chess computer software as it bills itself, still factory sealed, and I have Chessmaster 2000. I thought it was 3000. Program. But just 2, yeah. So I've got Chessmaster 2000 and Sargon 3. Originally, I was going with Sargon 3. I was thinking that's the way to go. And but now that I have seen that your software already beat my software on the Commodore 64, I'm thinking, But in that Commodore 64 match, there was no Chessmaster 2000. So you have not yet been tested with the Chessmaster. Big bearded fellow so it's from Electronic Arts, and so I think that's what I'm going to select.
I can see the front of that package. Yeah, I know the one you're talking about,
and it's cool looking. So I have both of them, and I thought it from my end, I want to unshrink wrap one of them and fulfill its 30-year-old destiny to finally take on a chess game. So we will be announcing details very shortly probably on Twitter and on everything else, and people can tune in live and root us on. But if anybody has a suggestion of which of these 2 I should use to give me the best shot against Earl. So Chessmaster 2000 or Sargon 3, which one on the Apple II is best if I'm matching against what was yours again on the Commodore 64?
Cyrus 2.
Cyrus 2, the disappointingly awesome sounding Cyrus 2, which seems to have wiped the floor with all other vintage chess software.
Now the thing is, logistics on this, we're going to have to figure out how we select certain parameters so that things are fair. So we're comparing apples and apples.
Got to be limited time. I don't think we should just let them go forever. I think it should be a short period where we say you get 3 minutes, 5 minutes. I'm going to have to look at the software, and you'll have to look at yours too to see. It doesn't let us limit it. But I think the software would often let you say it's only going to have this much time to think. And then logistically, so people
manual so that we can figure, how to set them so that it's a fair competition.
Yeah. So I'm going to I'll get a copy of it ahead of time, and I'll read the manual. But I intend at the beginning of our match, I will just unshrink wrap it right then, stick the disc in, and then we go. So I will be playing on a vintage Apple II. Now, will you be playing on a real Commodore 64, or are you a big cheater?
Yes, indeed. Nope. Not going to do emulation in warp mode. I will play on a real 64.
I think so too. It's got to be real hardware. We'll set up some cameras and we'll view. And just so people understand how it's going to work is essentially
split screen.
Yeah, which I can handle it on it. I can split screen the video, so we'll find a way to do a feed out and maybe tweet out the chess moves. So I'm really looking forward to this. Should be a good battle, and we will be doing it very shortly, so people can look forward to that, and we'll have more details soon.
Well, actually, we should probably put a page up on our RCR podcast site.
We will, and then maybe this will be the first of many head-to-head duels.
Yes.
I would be very interested in taking. If people have suggestions of other ones, doesn't have to be Apple II versus Commodore. It can be anything versus anything, and let's try doing some head-to-head until we can finally determine which computer is second best to the Apple II.
Very nice.
And then the last thing I thought I'd shout out at my end, a couple of little bits of personal news. First, well, not personal news. First is there's an interesting video, and maybe I'll grab a 30-second snippet of the song and call it fair use, where you can stick it at the end. A fellow named Julian Corey, he's written a song to say goodbye to vintage tech. He calls it Polybius. and there's a Vimeo website for it, or Vimeo video, and it's interesting. So it's him and a guitar, and he walks down into an empty pool, and gathered in the bottom of the pool is a whole bunch of retro tech, a bunch of hard drives, a bunch of floppy disks, Commodore 64, Ataris, and those become his like backup band. Isn't that kind of usual thing with the little squeals of the hard drive moving back and forth become his background beat? And he sings a little song. It's like 2.5 minutes, and it's really fun. So he sings a little song about saying goodbye, and I guess it's about really saying goodbye to a relationship, but it's kind of fun that he's saying goodbye to old tech. So I thought it was something that our listeners would enjoy. And Polybius, in case people don't know, there's the urban legend of the video game, the stand-up arcade Polybius, which supposedly would be like put in arcades by the CIA, and it would kill people. It would give you like when you played it, you would go and have a seizure, and they were trying to test. I don't know, it's a ridiculous urban myth. So I'll make sure I have a link to the page about that as well. I think actually Rob either mentioned it or did a full show, something about Polybius in an earlier
Death by
You Don't Know Flack. So I will grab a link to his show as well and make sure he's thinking of that. And the last bit of personal news is I have been working on, for the last few weeks now, an Infocom type parser for the Apple II, because I have a text adventure game I want to write and release for the Apple II, like a proper, real new software release for the Apple II. And
Wow.
I'm writing my own parser for it because I can't find something that will let me take Inform 7. My target for it is a 64K unenhanced Apple II. So a normal Apple II or 2 Plus or 2E, anything should be able to run it. But I'm giving myself 64K, and I'm running out of memory quick. So sorry, buy RAM. What can I do?
Well, and that may be the reason that there wasn't an Inform 7 parser.
Oh, and a whole bunch of it's crazy. So I've got the part, and it's a fun thing to do. Writing a 2-word parser, take sword, kill dragon, go east or north, that's a simple parser, but I'm trying to write something that's more robust. And so I'm at the point now where it can tell the difference between, take the sword off the table and take the sword off. And that, take the sword off is a different thing. Or, put the coat on the desk and put the coat on are different things. Or take the coat off the desk on the hook, or like it's just like my prepositional phrases are killing me, these things. And so, holy cow, the English language is more complicated than I thought it was, but it does understand now to look for verb, look for prepositions, look for direct object, and say, well, what comes after preposition is this, like so. And I think I've gotten too complicated because I'm down to the point that I have a decent parser now that I can type in a sentence and it'll come back saying, this is the verb, this is the object, this is a prepositional phrase denoting motion, or this is a prepositional phrase being used as an adjectival phrase, and it gets all that bit. But I'm down to 19K left just with the parser. I have no map, I have no room descriptions, I have no anything. So I got to streamline this thing. And how I'm doing it is using CC65. So I've got CC65, so I'm writing it in C, which has opened up a whole world of retro computing development for me because I'm much more familiar with C. And it's been a long time since I've done anything in BASIC, and it's been a long time since I've done anything in Assembler. And those are sort of the two other things available for Apple II developers. And man, I am rusty as heck in both of those. But C is something I do mostly Objective-C now, but it's still C at its root. So I've been dealing with that and loving the heck out of it. So just having such a good time slowly working on this parser has been a thrilling project. I can't wait to get to the actual map. So we will see. What about you, Earl? What is new in Earl land?
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm trying to crank out some new episodes of my other podcasts, and so I'm way behind, as usual. It's the story of my life. But as part of this, I've been doing a write-up on Turbo Pascal. Specifically Turbo Pascal for CP/M, and I like CP/M on the Commodore 128. Cool. I think it's a lot of fun. And I came up with a couple fun facts on this. First off, the Commodore 128 was the most popular CP/M computer in history. Sold more units than any other CP/M computer. But here's the thing.
You know what? That does make sense to me, actually.
CP/M.
No, but I can see that being the biggest selling one, though.
Yeah, I mean, somewhere between 2 and 3 million of them were sold, and the thing runs CP/M, so technically that makes it the best-selling CP/M computer ever, even though whatever percent of people actually ever played around with the CP/M. But some hacks can make the CP/M on it passably fast, The Commodore 128 had the 40 and 80 column screen mode,
Mhm.
and that 40 column screen mode was always holding the machine back in terms of speed. But some of these hacks turn that off so that CPM can run flat out and do good things. And so, yeah, I'm just having a whole bunch of fun.
So if it's not in, so 40 column mode slows it down. What's the other mode?
80 column.
Okay, I was gonna say, do you mean like the 80? So 40 column is slower?
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, even ignore the CPM part. Even if you're running just the stock 128, if you go into what they call fast mode, it turns off the 40 column, the VIC-2 chip. Just says, go sleepy now so that I can run faster.
So I'm still a big fan of 40 column as a look. All caps 40 column, sort of where I started with the Apple II. I don't think I'll do that for the text adventure game I'm working on. I'm going to try to make it work in 40 or 80, but I've been mostly just playing with it in 40 column mode. 80 column mode on the Apple II is actually kind of a weird hack itself, using the 2 pages, and yeah, it's bizarre when you're working with it directly because CC65 has no way to scroll the screen. There's no built-in, when you write a line of text, it doesn't scroll up. If you want to scroll, you have to say, well, grab this chunk of memory and move it up. And I'm doing a whole bunch of things I never used to have to do when I developed for the Apple II.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Michael points out that using CC65, you might be able to port your parser to other 6502.
Oh, I'm positive it will.
computers.
I'm using an Apple II Target, but I haven't been doing anything with it that's not just using like basically standard I/O stuff so far. There'll probably be nothing in the code that's Apple II specific, other than this whole scrolling routine. But that's just literally a couple of functions. So it'd be very easy to port it to something else if I let other computers run it.
There are, because you might just decide. Are you going to copy protect it? So,
no, of course not. No.
So there are some other funny comments here. Your next Carrington's next eBay purchase should be a shovel for this hole he's digging in regards to Commodore users. Also, Michael says the best shot for Carrington is to find a C64 emulator for the Apple II.
Oh, right. You're running on that.
You're getting kind of hammered in the comments here.
I am indeed. Yeah.
Although Grumpier Than Thou has a good point. Which model of Apple II are you going to use? Because the 2C Plus can go 4 megahertz. I don't think that's fair.
No, I'm a 1 megahertz guy. Whatever I do, and if I did it on 2C Plus, I would do it in slow mode. I think I can beat you at 1 megahertz.
All right.
I can beat you with 1 megahertz time behind my back.
Game on then. The other thing I'll mention is my daughter and I built a computer. We built a breadboarded computer. Now, of course, 99% of people just listen to the audio. They can't see what we do here. But for the people who can see, I'm going to show you here this breadboard computer, and then I'll go ahead and talk about it for just a second. It's based on a propeller chip. That's the main CPU, and also the propeller has 32K. Were you able to see it, by the way?
Perfectly, and it looks amazing.
Great. Propeller chip has 32K of RAM built into the chip, so that's the actual memory. Now that has to run the basic interpreter and has to have the room for the basic programs. So like the VIC-20, when you actually light the thing up, you only have about 4K left over for programming. It has VGA output, PS2 keyboard input, and you can store your programs on an SD card. It uses a basic interpreter called Propeller Color Basic that was written by a group of folks, actually. The primary person working on it now is Jeff, Old Bit Collector is his handle on the forums. And he's both a Commodore guy and a Propeller retro computing guy. And anyway, we just had loads of fun. I didn't do any of the breadboarding. Jessica did all that. I helped out in the design of how to put it all together, but she basically built the whole thing from scratch. So for, I don't know, maybe my first time ever, we have a completely homebrewed, breadboarded computer that we're playing around with.
That is parenting done right, sir. Nice.
Somebody said, yeah, another junior engineer. Yeah, we had lots of fun building this and then programming it, doing some graphics programming, and
that's awesome. Well done, you. Nice.
So that's one of the things that's going on my end.
I like your end. Oh, back to the flirting.
Yeah, now cut that out.
Well, good show, sir.
Likewise.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in live. I appreciate it. And, of course, thank you to everyone who stayed subscribed. We missed the last show 2 weeks ago, but we are back on track. So you can expect the next RCR will be on Sunday, September 15th at the usual time, 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific. The show notes, as always, you can find at rcrpodcast.com. So everything we just talked about, and more, you can find by heading over to rcrpodcast.com and looking at the show notes for show number 57. You can talk about this in the forum, which is vintage-computer.com/vcforum. But of course, there's just links to the forum on our own website. You can follow us on Twitter. We are at rcrpodcast. And you can send feedback to us, which is our favorite thing in the world. Earl loves to get feedback. Teach Earl to read with your feedback.
Oh, in fact, we had some feedback, and we didn't get to it this episode. Sorry about that. We'll get it next episode, but we love the feedback, and please keep sending it.
Absolutely. So you can write to us at feedback@rcrpodcast.com, and if you want to help us have other people find the show, best way to do that is spend a second and give us a quick review of any sort on iTunes. If you do that, then it really helps bump up our the number of people that can view us. So it's really, we appreciate if people do that. But the main thing is that you listened, and we love you for it. So thank you very much. And until next time, retro compute! Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
So Earl, do you have anything for show and tell?
I showed it.
That wasn't enough. Show me more.
What else do I have? Sorry, that's it.
Well, I went to Fan Expo. So I have a room full of comic books. I am now finally getting around to reading Saga, which everybody for years has been telling me is the best comic to come out in the last 10 years or so, so I'm quite excited about it. So my world is full of new comics. Fan Expo was super, super fun. I even got a Vulcan foam finger.
Very nice.
It came in my bag.
Very nice. Now, there was a Creation Con, I think, that just happened, right? In Vegas or something like that? I thought there was a Creation...
What happens in Vegas still means penicillin when you come home.
It might. Now, in this case, I think they voted Star Trek Into Darkness as the 13th movie out of 12.
Which is ridiculous. And I remember Simon Pegg being upset about that, and justifiably so. There has been some real dogs of Star Trek. I'm a fan of Star Trek, but there's some crappy movies. Let's face it. And the idea that Star Trek Into Darkness
was one of them.
No,
I really enjoyed it.
It might not be the best one, but I really enjoyed it. I love what J.J. Abrams is doing with the franchise. It's ridiculous. I can see people saying it's not the best one. I can see people saying, oh, it doesn't make their top 3. But the idea that it's the worst one is silly. That's just silly reactionary nonsense. Of course,
I think it might just be a knee-jerk reaction to the reboot.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But that's just silly. Just silly. Because it was really good. I quite liked it. And, embarrassingly, they have got my hopes up again for Star Wars. I swore it would never happen. I swore that after the prequels, he would never once again break my heart the way he did.
Ooh.
But I'm starting to get excited again, and I'm worried about it. I'm worried.
Yeah.
Star Wars. They keep talking about things like, we're going to have more practical effects. I like practical effects. We're going to have like a smaller universe, and that keeps things more like it was the first one, just implies that greater universe. I'm like, I like that a lot about the first movies. And we're going to have like a more sensible plot that's less about taxation. I like plots that are not about taxation. So
yes.
I'm getting excited, Earl, and I worry.
There are 2 words that worry me. Disney.
Yes, my concern is that because the more...
Not because I have anything against Disney.
No, but it's children's stuff, and where Star Wars went wrong is they became children's movies. Yeah, I don't even care about the merchandise. I don't know. Han Solo was a great toy, whatever. I had as a kid, but Star Wars wasn't made as if its target market was 4-year-olds. It also appealed to 4-year-olds, but it wasn't only for 4-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And increasingly, the problem with Disney movies is they're like, oh, we're going to target 4-year-olds, and they will have a little bit for the parents as well. I don't want a Star Wars like that. It'll break my heart again.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let it break my heart again.
Well, we need to write them. We need to let them know. Everybody on Earth needs to write them and say, look, this is part of our childhood. You wreck it again, you got us to deal with.
Do they? They're gonna sell 1 billion Happy Meals, and they don't care what I think. But I'm starting to get excited about it, so we will see what happens.
You might be right. I can't help being excited about it. I mean, I wanted them to make a 7, 8, and 9. I really did. And, for a long time, I mean, people were saying, hey, you're crazy. They're never going to make a 7, 8, and 9. There never even was a plan for a 7, 8, and 9. I said, yes, there was. There was indeed. There were even some treatments
as a kid
put together for it. So
I heard about that whole idea that there would be 9 movies in total way before the prequels came out. So that was originally what I heard, I think. Unless I'm just, retroactively you can remember stuff that didn't really happen. So it could be one of those.
I do that all the time.
I think I remember that being a thing that really happened. Well, Flack would know. He's got all the toys, almost all the toys but 4 or something. So he would know.
Let me see if that's true. I don't know if they're still on.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, we have 17 viewers. Our viewership's not huge for this.
I think it's really lagged, though. I mean, they joked about it being lagged, but I think it's lagged not by seconds, but by minutes.
Oh, well then, eventually people will catch up. So I think that about wraps up for me. I think I got to go. I've got my half-sister in town, so I'm entertaining. I was up the CN Tower earlier today, showing them the city from 800 million miles high, so that was quite fun.
I love the CN Tower.
Yeah, super, super, super fun. You can look over our nice, beautiful, friendly, clean city from way up in the sky. And now I'm going to take everybody out to dinner.
Did you lay down on the glass?
I stomped on the glass. I jump up and down.
You did not.
Sure, totally. Okay, the glass
really? There were some guys doing that. So we went to the Tokyo Sky Tower when we were in Tokyo, and it's just a teeny tiny bit bigger than the CN Tower. And so, haha on you. But we went there, and there was a glass floor again, and you got this guy jumping on it. I'm like, all right, you're crazy. You got a death wish. I'm getting out of here. But he didn't go through, thank goodness.
No, they're designed
probably like 4 foot of glass or something like that. Who knows? But
yes, it's a lot. You can see from when you look on the side, it's crazy, crazy thick. So, figure I'm safe. I lip up and down on it. Super fun.
Well, I hope you have a fun dinner.
I shall indeed. It's fun to have family in town, so I'm going to go visit with them.
Yeah. And goodbye to everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
Yes, always. Indeed. We are going to try to figure out a way to sort out this whole where is our show live so we can post a link properly. I'm going to try to track that down so the next episode we can have something right on rcrpodcast.com and say just go there, and when you click on the link, it'll take you right to the video.
Or you can go
figure out a way to get that link. We'll post a video, then I'll get the link, then I'll stick that on RCR, then we'll start recording. So if we do it in that order, we should be able to get people to watch it. Because I know we get email and comments from people, they simply can't find our broadcast until after the fact. So
frustrating. We'll figure it out. We promise.
Yes, we will. We promise a lot of things. And I'm going to kick your butt at chess.
All right. Well, we'll see, won't we?
Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
See you, Carrington.
Bye, everyone.